Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of
the
fair
views
use.
expressed at or through this broadcast is those of the individual host and guests in their individual capacities only. The information provided on this broadcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all information, content, and materials available on this broadcast are for general informational purposes only. All viewers should contact their attorney to obtain advice with respect to any and all legal matters.
Peace and blessings. This is Jakim from the Hard Talk with Jakim show. Can't get enough of the Hard Talk with Jakim show? You can email us at btom6164@gmail.com. That's bthomp6164@gmail.com. Peace.
Sellout in the hood is the drug dealer, and people don't look at it that way. And
expound on that.
The first sellout is a drug dealer because I'm just trying to feed my family is not an answer for you to be able to kill my family. You can't kill my family because you're trying to feed your family. So you're the first sellout, and we co-sign that and be cool. It's like he's just trying to eat. He's not just trying to eat. He's killing your family while he's trying to eat. You're creating a climate that makes black on black the worst thing on the planet. You're killing black people trying to make a living. And the oppressor is absolutely loving that. And I said they love a drug dealer. Your colonizer loves a drug dealer because you're killing your people to feed yourself. So I said, nah, you can't get a pass from me. The first.
Listen, man, that was the great rapper / hip-hop pioneer Kumo D talking about the drug dealers in our community being the first sellout. They're not the only sellouts, but they are definitely the first sellouts in my book, and I guess in Kumo D's book. Peace and blessings, y'all. This is your man, Jakim, with the Hard Talk with Jakim show here on a Friday, May 9th. Can you believe it? It's already May 9th, 2025. So we've got a lot to get to. I've got a lot of Delaware stuff, and I got a lot of national news stuff. But before we get into that, let me just get you this. Realizing long ago, for some of you that are still playing the street ninja, and you know I'm substituting the word ninja, street ninja at 60 years old, I gotta play that thing that Mace says. Because if you are still rocking those same street ninja clothes at 60 and 50 and 45, I'm gonna say what Mace said. You fail. You're a failure. And realizing that you so-called gangsters out here are just pawns in ruining the community. That's what Kumo D is trying to tell you. That if you are out here trying to act like you're a gangster on the corner, or you talking to yourself, or listening to nonsense on the bus or the train and all that old nonsense, well, nonsensical nonsense that we have been attributed to for the last 40 years in our communities, you fail. I'm sorry. You're not a high value person. You fail. Any woman that would sleep with you is a failure because of what you represent as a man. Nothingness. So I'm going to be real with y'all now. I have to be real because I saw a lot of foolishness going up into Philadelphia this week. And most of the foolishness was here in Delaware, but there's a lot of foolishness in Chester and in Philadelphia too. It's the same foolishness that we go through in our communities all over the United States, and I dare to say all over the world. Again, this is the Hard Talk with Jakim show, and listen, we got a lot of stuff to unpack. Let me unpack this first. Let me stay local. Now, if you're from Delaware and you watch my podcast or watch this show and you seeing what's going on in Wilmington, first, electing the guy that was an 8-year governor here that did absolutely nothing for the black community as the governor. And also he was a representative and lieutenant governor before that. And now he's the mayor. He's come up with a farce for y'all. He's come up with another game plan where they use, and I'm going to use a reference from Star Wars, Jedi mind trick. Yes, I call this the John Carney Jedi mind trick for the black community. We have some, if you're not from Delaware, you may not know that this small state does have a homelessness or a unhoused problem. You know, they want me to use those types of words. I'll use it for it, but it means the same thing. So our problem is not as big as Philadelphia, not as big as New York, definitely not as big as Los Angeles, Chicago, whatever. But we do have a problem here. So it was a contentious, when I say contentious, Democratic primary last year, where John Carney, who was the governor at the time, ran for mayor of Wilmington against a black woman. Because they didn't want to see a black person, a black woman who was not going to kowtow to them. If you don't know what that kowtow means, I want you to research it. We're going to be doing the Dick Gregory response to a lot of things tonight on the show. If you don't believe me, research it. So again, they didn't want her in office. So now we got the governor. Now what the governor did recently is announced that there's a homelessness task force. Now, what are they going to do about the homelessness? I really would like for somebody to tell me about a solution if you really are out here for solutions. Because we don't need any more talking, do we? I don't need any city council members talking about the homelessness problem and try to form another committee. I don't need the mayor of Wilmington, Delaware, to form a farce, a pretend thing that he's going to tackle Wilmington. Let me just show you the members of the Wilmington Housing Homelessness Task Force. Well, we got the name on it. Let me just show you the members, and then I'll be right back. That's right. No activists. Nobody who's out in the street doing the work. Look at it again. Oh, I see one blackface. Maybe Hispanic, I don't know. I do see John Sasson from the Dart there. I actually do believe he should be on. Now, you might say, Jakim, why do you think that particular white man might need to be on it? Because his organization, Dart Bus Systems, Dart First State Bus here in Delaware, has the shelters. They're in charge of the bus shelters. And there are a number of homeless people sleeping in the bus shelters. So I believe he needs to be on it. I'm going to say that. Now, let's take a look at it again, Joe. There's about 4 people that I know in Delaware that needed to be on that task force. One of them was Terrell Williams. So if you watch Terrell, I think you should have been on the task force. Another Sister Marva here in Southbridge, who has that center, she needed to be on that task force. I don't know see, again, this is one of John Carney's Jedi mind trick. Listen, we've had a lot of Jedi mind trick done on the black community from a lot of these politicians, mostly Democrats, because the Republicans don't waste their time on Jedi mind trick. They actually just go out and do their racist thing. But the Democrats here in Delaware are always finding some new Jedi mind trick on the black community. Look at this homeless task force again. Now, when I went there, not only was the place that they were having the meeting at way too small for the amount of people that was there, and that was done by purpose. That was done, yeah, of course. It had to be done by purpose. They knew that something as big as homelessness problem in Delaware was going to attract a lot of people. So why did they have it in the smallest room in a city council building? Thank you, Mayor Carney. All right, y'all. So now I'm going to go to a little bit of national news. But before we do that, let me just say this. I want everybody here who watches my show, whether here or on YouTube, if you believe that United States is not a racist country, just like some of the sellouts have been saying, raise your hands. Yeah, raise your hands. All right, now if your hands is up, you can tune me off. Because any country in 2025 that a white woman can call a young person who may be on the autism spectrum the N-word at the playground, and not only call him an N-word, but raise almost more than $500,000, $500,000 from supporters who think that that's the right way to go. You have just proven what we always say. So again, thank you, because you prove my point every day and twice on Sundays. All right, y'all, this is the Hard Talk with Jakim show. I'll be right back with the Hard Talk with Jakim show.
Peace and blessings. This is your man, Jakim, from the Hard Talk with Jakim show. Here's the number 5 reasons I do not talk about sports on the Hard Talk with Jakim show, unless it's social or it's about pay. Here's number 5. No one pays me to talk about sports, and it doesn't matter to me. Number 4. We've got enough talking heads to talk about sports. Sports can be a distraction. Does it change anything in the black community for me to talk about sports? Number 2, if it's not about sports wagering, it doesn't matter. Number 1, the number 1 reason is because a guy who's 6'4.5", who is black, that's what they want you to talk about, not social and political issues.
All right, y'all, we're back with the Hard Talk with Jakim show here on a Friday. And listen, let me just go back to the race issue, because that becomes a big issue. I'm going to talk about an issue that happened at the city council, Wilmington, Delaware city council, when they talked about some rent stabilization and a post. I'll talk about that later. But before I get to that, I want everybody who always says, especially the trolls, you got to love your haters. I don't. I only like the people that make sense. Why we always bring up race? Why we don't always bring up race? Y'all bring up race in your actions, in your deeds. And even if I had the ability, I can tell you in your own thoughts, but I don't. So we're going to judge you by your actions and your deeds. We bring up race because we're still living in a world where racism pays. This lady got $500,000 for being a racist. She was a brokey. Believe me, she was a brokey. But she got $500,000 for being a racist. So when they say, why you black people, and why you colored people, and why you always bring it up? Because you bring it up. We still live in a world where racism pays. We're not inserting race into anything that hasn't already been stitched into the fabric. I don't insert race into anything that I talk about that has already been stitched in the fabric of America, in the fabric of Delaware, in this Jim and Jane Crow laws that we have, Jim and Jane Crow type things. I don't talk about it. So I couldn't care less. I could not care less. And when I say I couldn't care less, I'm really meaning that I'm not interested. It's not that I couldn't care less. It's that I'm not interested into your racial condemnations. I really don't care. But you stitched it. The people who are the dominant society stitched it and woven it into every aspect of human life. So when I ask why, so when you ask why, we talk about, I wrote this down. Remember, just hold up the mirror to yourself. And you're the reason why we keep talking about race. You're the reason why when we talk about DEI, you think it's a hand up for black folks when it really ain't. It ain't even scratched the surface. You think that when you talk about critical race theory, that we're talking about something that should be, no, that shouldn't be taught. No, you say it because you don't want the truth. And in my book, truth always matters. There's not a time when the truth does not matter. So that's why we get into that stuff. You heard me at the top of the hour, I talked about all the people who are the sellouts, like the drug dealers and so-called gangsters. And if you're 60 years old or 50 years old and you're still dressing like you're in 1982 and you're still listening to the same nonsense and you're not trying to uplift your community, hell, not even your own family you're trying to uplift. I can't even see a man who won't stand on his own 2 feet. I can't see it. But if you're doing enough stuff, I'm going to say, like Mace said, you failed. And I 100% co-sign this. So if anybody asks you, yes, Jakim said you failed. If you're running around here trying to be a gangster and you're part of the reasons why you're ruining our communities, you failed. All right, let's get into some national news real quick. They got a new pope. On to the next story. Let's see. We have one of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick before I leave out of here tonight, because we're going to have a short show. I've got guests on next Friday. We're going to be talking about the sneaker ball next Friday. Big shout out to Terry and her team. We're going to be talking about after you're incarcerated, to be woven back into society again. And this is important because, as you know, I've worked for over 2 decades in the correctional facilities in New York City. So I do know something about the prison/jail system. And we're going to have something about the sneaker ball. She's going to talk about reintegration into society and all the other things. I'm just going to talk to you about something that happened here and my personal experience on the bus 3 days ago. 3 days ago, I was riding the 15 bus. Big shout out to Dart, First State. You're on time most of the time this week, and I'm not mad at you. Most of the drivers were cool. I'm not mad at you. But I was in the back of the bus, all in the back of the bus. And the young lady, the Lord, I'm going to tell this story because I got to. It's the truth. She was hiding down in the back of the bus when we was coming around Jefferson Farm. Now I'm on my laptop doing some work, and I can see her head go down below the seat. So anytime I'm going to raise an eyebrow with me. I'm going to look to see what the hell you're doing. You might be pulling out an AK-47. I don't know what you're doing. But I have not been in the prison system in such a long time, so I can't tell the difference between PCP, crack, meth, any of that anymore because my nose ain't sensitive to it no more. I used to be, but especially when I worked in security, I could walk down there and tell you what they smoking. I can't tell you now. When I'm walking down the dorms or walking in the cell block, I can't. But I can't tell you now. But whatever it was, she was lighting up on the 15 bus. And I just had to tell her. I said, listen, sister, I hope you're not smoking, because it is your smoke, but the smoke don't stay with you. That's the last thing I want to do, is walk into some place or a meeting and I got some crack, meth, or PCP, angel dust on my clothing. And they say, well, damn, Jakim, what are you doing? Yeah, maybe your smoke, but it don't stay with you. Do it. And I could tell my correction antennas went up, because she started to call for Social Security, and I just got out of jail, and she said it boldly on the phone on the bus. Again, etiquette, social cues. Know where to place your conversation. That has nothing to do with you being in jail. I remember when I was a young correction officer that I had some of the most polite people in prison, locked up. And I had a lot of knuckleheads and meatheads. Lots of them. So that had nothing to do with it. It was what she was accustomed to. It is what she loved to existence. Which leads me to my last point, y'all. All right, y'all. So here's where I'm at. Big time. Hey, big shout out to you. Thank you, Tanya. Tanya said my shout out on Pope was awesome. There you go. They got a new Pope. There you go. That's right. That's right, Tanya. Peace. You know, one of the things is narrative control. This is an important weapon that they use against us all the time. It's called a narrative control. It's when they tried to make the narrative into something that it wasn't. Well, let me just tell you what happened in City Council yesterday. Now, I told you about the homeless task farce that happened a couple of days ago. This is what happened last night. Check it out. All right, so this guy, Jeff Sheridan, I have not researched him. I have not looked him up to see where he places in Wilmington, Delaware. Don't know him, but I saw that post, and that post had been populated here in Delaware. Well, what happened in the city council, Wilmington City Council, is that they was looking to pass some legislation to do something about the rents here in city council, maybe to stabilize it. In a lot of big cities, they have rent stabilizing boards or rent stabilization boards or things like that will tell landlords that they can go up increments of this or that and still make it affordable for people to live into the city that may not have disposable income like the gentrifiers that are coming in. And believe me, I ain't got nothing against the gentrifiers if you're trying to be part of the community. But this guy, Jeff Sheridan, took obsession to it because it got out of committee and said the black, the white, the Latino, and the brown community that was there was a mob. He called y'all a mob. That y'all were influencing the city council members to get that particular bill or pact out of committee. Jeff Sheridan called you a mob. I'm not surprised. This is what they call narrative control. It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, brown, to a certain extent, to an Indian, Asian, doesn't matter what nationality or racial makeup you are. When it comes to landlords against tenants, it is always them against you. which also comes back to a racial, which is also woven into the fabric of this. So he called your mom. I'm not surprised. What I am surprised is last night at that city council on that Thursday that they didn't call the cops on y'all, because that's what they normally do. It's called narrative control. They want to control the narrative, so he made it a point to call people who were vocally expressing their right to have their regress to their government about legislation a mob. This is what they do. This is how they rock. And that's the reason why the Hard Talk with Jakim show exists. I will continue to denounce the narrative that they perpetrate on us. I will shape the narrative with truth. No more lies, hypocrisies, and filthy half-truths. Listen, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But that's what they don't want. That's what they're afraid of. That is what they will continue to do. And every time someone tells me that there's no such thing as systemic racism and they don't come with any proof of it, they don't come with any proof. Oh my God, maybe they'll pick out a couple of millionaires. Maybe a couple of black millionaires or billionaires that we have. No matter how many black millionaires or billionaires that we have right now, it is pale in comparison to how many white millionaires and billionaires that exist. So that argument actually proves the point of systemic racism, but I'm going to let y'all stay there. There is something going on where people actually do not believe the narrative that they've been spoon-fed since they were young. A lot of people are coming to me and telling me, I see him on the bus, I see him on the train, I see him in Philly, I see him in New York, I see him here in Delaware, and they say, you're absolutely right, Jakim. There's something that's going on that's saying people see what you're doing. In fact, let me just give you this narrative. When somebody says, oh my God, there's black billionaires or millionaires, so there must not be systemic racism. Well, let me just say this. Let's say LeBron James, and I'm just going to pick LeBron James just out of the thin air, just because I have nothing against him. I have nothing for him. But I will say, I'm going to pick LeBron James. LeBron James playing an arena, let's say the Madison Square Garden. He's playing against the Knicks. And LeBron James is one of the richest basketball players out there. And let me just say, it's all the sports. You know, I played sports for many years, and I had to learn this the hard way. Sports are child's games. That's what they are. And if you become a professional child game player, that's what you will be. They're child games. That's all. If it ain't about, like I said in my promos, if it ain't about equity and pay and wagering, I don't care about sports. Really. I only do it to maintain body function. But let me let you understand this. As wealthy as LeBron James is, as much money as LeBron James has, and he's one of the wealthiest in the NBA, in the National Basketball Association, he's still not as wealthy as the man who makes the chairs that be in those stadiums. He's still not as wealthy as the person who provides the food and provides all the other comfort, the lights, the sound systems, whatever, who create those things. I want you to understand there's a difference between celebrityism and wealthyism. Believe you me, there's a difference. And a lot of y'all don't think it. You'll try to You think these people and they all into your DMs and you all get mad about 50 Cent and Puffy and all that, and y'all think these are the most wealthiest people? Believe you me. Believe you me. If Warren Buffett had LeBron James money, he would jump out the window tomorrow. If Jeff Bezos had even Tom Cruise money, and Tom Cruise is very wealthy. If Jeff Bezos had Tom Cruise money, he'd be jumping out the window. And tons of people that you don't even know. So the wealth gap between blacks and whites and brown and yellow is huge. So don't think they all playing in the same team. They ain't. There's levels to this game. All right, y'all. I'm going to be right back with the Hard Talk with Jakim show. Let's listen to Reverend Ike. I'll be right back. Peace.
You are not going to get anywhere in this world. You're not going to get anywhere financially, spiritually, socially, or otherwise until you get to that point where you don't give a damn about what other people think about you. But let me caution you, just be sure that you are right. Be sure that there is love in your heart. Keep your nose clean and your business straight, and don't worry about what other people think about you.
All right, Joe. I always got to play that Reverend Ike one because I actually love that. Yes, they put a new statue in Times Square. It's only going to be up for a little bit. It's only going to be up for a little bit of time, y'all. So there's a statue in Times Square, and let me just be when I first saw it, I said, "Oh, that's a black woman." Check it out, Joe. All right, Joe. Now, before y'all start your comments on it, before anybody get a comment, I actually like it. It's not here to represent everybody. Definitely not the body shape to represent everybody. But I like it. It's only going to be up there for a little bit of time, so y'all better get to New York City, take a picture of it. And if you do take a picture of it, make sure you hashtag the Hard Talk with Jakim Show. If you take a picture of it, hashtag it with the Hard Talk with Jakim Show. I'm going to read your joint on loud. So remember, go check out this statue. All right, y'all. So next week I've got guests on. I got even more stuff I'm going to talk about. Let me just say this about the Shannon Sharp one more time about Shannon Sharp, Jonathan Majors, and every other folks that got out there. If you cannot control your appetite for stuff, food, sex, women, cars, material things, if you can't control that appetite, you will lose. If you're black, if you're brown, if you're not in that system. And you know the system is the Matrix, y'all. All right, the whole history of America is woven in the fabric of America, racism. I'm going to leave you with Mr. Tim Wise. Mr. Tim Wise has been talking about racism and the effects of racism in communities. Yes, he is a white man, and he's talking about the effects of racism. Just recently, his books have been banned in certain military and stuff through the Trump administration, certain places. But the funny thing is, Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler and other stuff are still there. But that's the hypocrisy that we have all come and been under the grip of. All right, y'all. It's been a Hard Talk with Jakim show. I'm going to see you on the next side. See you next week. And we're going to have a great show, y'all. Peace.
Let me say that again. The whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white.
We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other. Before we figured out there were other people to kill, we just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks